Hello and a very warm welcome to the Data Skills Academy. In this session, we're going to take our very first steps into the world of SQL. Now that stands for Structured Query Language, which sounds a little technical, I know, but really it's just a special language we use to have a conversation with data, to ask it questions and get answers, and you'll see, it's actually pretty logical.
So let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered how a big online shopping site can find that one specific thing you're looking for out of millions of products in just a split second? Well, the magic behind all of that speed and accuracy is something called a database. And the language it speaks, well, that's SQL. And that's exactly what we're here to learn today.
All right, so let's start with the most basic question, right? What even is a database? At its heart, a database is simply a highly organized place to store information. The best way to think of it is like a massive digital filing cabinet. Its real power, though, comes from its structure, from how it's all organized. That's what allows us to find exactly what we need almost instantly.
So, here's our plan for this session. First, we'll get a really clear idea of what a database is. Then, we'll learn how to ask for data using a command called select. After that, we'll see how we can filter that data down, how to sort it, and finally, how to get a quick summary. We're just going to go step by step, taking it one piece at a time.
Okay, let's dive into our first section. What is a database? To really get this, there's one single idea we need to understand first, and that's the concept of tables.
And here is a perfect example of a table. As you can see, it's really just a simple grid, kind of like a spreadsheet you've probably seen before. Each horizontal row here is its own unique thing. In this case, a single movie, like Up or Toy Story. And each vertical column holds one specific piece of information about those movies: the title, the director, the year. This simple, organized structure, well, it's the key to everything we're going to do.
All right, so now we know that our data lives inside a table. The next step is to learn the language we need to ask for it. This brings us right into Section 2, asking for data with select. And just so you know, anytime we ask the database for information, that request is called a query.
So here it is, our very first SQL command. This is the most fundamental one we're going to learn. With this one simple line, we are telling the database two very important things: what information we want and where to find it. Here, we're asking to select the title column and the year column from our movies table. Let's break that down, piece by piece, just to make sure it's crystal clear. The first part, select, title, year, is us telling the database exactly which columns we're interested in. The second part, from movies, tells the database where to go looking for those columns, inside our movies table. And finally, that little semicolon. You can just think of that like the period at the end of a sentence. It tells the database, okay, my request is finished.
And look at that, here's our result. The database understood our query perfectly and gave us back this new temporary table. Notice how it only has the two columns we asked for, title and year. We got exactly what we requested, nothing more and nothing less. Pretty cool, right?
Now, getting a big list of all the movie titles and years is great, but a lot of the time, we need to be way more specific, and that brings us to our next tool in Section 3, which is all about filtering with something called the where clause.
To really understand filtering, let's use a little analogy. Asking for everything is like walking into a library and asking the librarian for a list of every single book they have. You'd be overwhelmed. But filtering? That's like asking only for the books written by a specific author. It's targeted, it's specific, and it's a whole lot more useful.
Here's how we actually do that in SQL. We start with the query we already know. Select title, director, year from movies. But then we add a brand new part, the where clause. This clause lets us set a condition or a rule. And here, our rule is where director equals Pete Doctor. We're telling the database, hey, only give me the rows where the director's name is exactly Pete Doctor.
And here is the result of that. Instead of that huge list of all our movies, we now have this much smaller, really relevant list. The database has filtered the whole table just to show us the films directed by Pete Doctor. This is an incredibly powerful tool for really zeroing in on the exact information you need.
Okay, so we can get the specific data we want. That's a huge step. Our next step is to organize it. This brings us right to Section 4, sorting and limiting results, or as I like to think of it, tidying up your data.
So, let's take a look at how we sort our results. We just add another new clause to our query, order by. This command tells the database how we want to sort the rows. In this example, we're sorting our results by the year column. And we've also added the keyword DESC, which just stands for descending. This means we're sorting from the highest value to the lowest, or in this case, from the newest movie to the oldest. And would you look at that? Here is our sorted list. Notice how much easier this is to read. If you wanted to find the most recent films, bam, they're right there at the top. Sorting just makes our data so much more intuitive and easier to understand at a glance.
But what if our sorted list is still a little too long? What if we only want to see, say, the top 5 newest movies? Well, we can do that by adding one more simple keyword to the very end of our query, limit. And there we go. By adding limit 5 to the end, the database now gives us back just the top 5 rows from our sorted list. Let's just pause and think about what we've done here. By combining select, from, where, order by, and now limit, we've gone from a huge table of all our movies to this very specific, sorted, and totally manageable list of just the 5 most recent ones.
So far, we've been working with individual rows of data, all the little details. But, sometimes we don't really care about the details. We just want a high-level summary, the big picture. And that brings us to our final technique in Section 5, summarizing your data.
So instead of asking for columns like title or year, we can use something called an aggregate function to get a summary. The simplest one to start with is count. Writing select count star is basically like asking the database, hey, can you just count every single row you have in the movies table and tell me what the total number is? And check out the result. It's not another table full of data, it's just a single number, 250. Instantly, we know exactly how many movies are in our entire database. This is perfect for getting a quick overview or a big picture statistic without getting lost in the details.
We have really covered a lot of ground in this session. You now have a fantastic set of foundational tools for asking questions of data. So let's do a quick review in our final section, your SQL Toolkit.
These keywords are really the core building blocks for working with data. Let's just go over them one last time. Select tells the database what you want. From tells it where to look. Where helps you filter your data by setting a rule. Order by puts everything in a nice, neat order. Limit keeps your list short and sweet. And count gives you that quick summary total.
You've learned the basics of a whole new language today. A language that lets you have a conversation with data. You now know how to ask for specific information, filter it down, put it in order, and even get the big picture with a summary. So I'll just leave you with this thought. With these powerful new skills, what is the very first question that you want to ask?